Okay. Here we are. We're going to start the broadcast here in just a minute. We are 1 minute over, so let's start. All right, we're started already. Oh, wow, I did start the broadcast. Okay, broadcast has started. Wasn't even aware that I'd hit start broadcast, but I did, so good. Tonight's results on a rampage, we're going to talk about the yes drug. I talked about that a couple of times over the last couple of weeks in different places. Talked a little bit about it on the LA Talk radio show today, as the show is mainly about the misery of, let's see, mute your mic. Okay, we talked today on LA Talk radio about the misery of misery of maybe, and what saying maybe does to us. I'm trying to find a place to put a couple of notes that I had. I'll just have to look at them as we go. Sorry. We're not actually looking at everybody, paying attention. All right. So today we're going to start results on a rampage for Tuesday night, September the 2nd. And we're going to talk about the yes drug, what it does, why we have it, and try to figure out for you whether or not you are addicted and what to do about it. So I see we've got Manny and Rick on here, Joy, and I put the link in the on the event page. Those that want to can find it. I didn't go through the big invite thing in the actual Hangout because I was running a little bit late and having trouble with the lower third. So here we are started. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the yes drug. The yes drug, again, before I do that, I'm going to review what Results on a Rampage is. Results on a Rampage is dedicated to individuals and businesses that are intending and trying and looking for ways to explode their business, make radical personal change. So radical personal change, I call those radical change candidates. RCC, radical change candidate, and businesses that are trying to level up their business, or businesses that are trying to start that want to avoid all the common mistakes and get done in a short period of time what normally would take a long period of time by having the shortcuts, hand-holding, and advice that is important to get to avoid the roadblocks and get done what you need to get done. So today I put the question, do you take the yes drug? Now, the yes drug is a simple idea, and it's the idea that everything is in flux all the time. We are in change regularly. Everything in nature is in change. Plants are either growing or dying. Buildings, you know, the paint is getting older and decaying, or you're repainting. Our minds are either expanding because we're feeding them, or they decay, they lose capability. Our bodies, you know, muscles physically, they grow or they atrophy. That's a natural thing, and we intuitively know that. It's true with every living system in this mortal universe that we live in. The second law of thermodynamics, you know, law of entropy, says things tend toward a more disordered state, a state of lowest energy. So that all has to do with the idea of progressive decay. And that happens unless we take action and we do something. We know that when we exercise our agency, our choice, our ability to make a difference, and we do something positive, that we grow instead of decay. So, for example, if I hit the floor and do push-ups every morning, my arms get a little bigger and I can do more push-ups. If I run regularly, then my cardio gets better and I can run. If I study regularly, then I learn something about a subject. If I practice speed reading, I learn to read faster. If I meditate regularly, I learn to put myself in alpha state in a few seconds, and I'm able to address the creative center. If I spent some time studying and creating connection between myself and source, then I'm able to feel and receive inspiration more rapidly. Anything that we intentionally do, we get better at. That's a state of growth rather than a state of decay. However, here's the fun piece. The fun piece is all of the things that I mentioned in the state of growth take effort. They take work. And so one of the key characteristics as an average is that we seem to be allergic to work. We seem to be lazy. by nature. We seem to want the easy way. The guy that wanted to learn geometry, right? Euclid said the famous, there's no royal road to geometry. He was basically telling the king, get over it. You got to study it like everybody else. You can't just have geometry in your repertoire. So all of us understand that if we want to learn a language, if we want to learn math skills, if we want to learn how to snowboard, if we want to learn how to do anything or be anything, it takes the requisite effort to do that. The same thing with our minds. If you want to learn what neuroplasticity is and how to reprogram your brain, if you want to learn how to meditate and be able to get to alpha state quickly to access your creativity, if you want to learn how to concentrate instead of being distracted regularly, if you want to know how to change your emotional makeup. Manny did a hangout earlier today talking about different ways to reprogram our mind and change our lives by how we think. If we want to do that, though, we have to take the requisite steps, and that always seems to be the problem, the difficulty, the struggle, because we often don't really want to do that. We don't want to take the time and effort to make those moves. So there are two pieces that we don't seem to want to do. One is to create commitment. Creating commitment is something that is difficult to actually do it. Now, this is where the yes drug comes in, because our mouths regularly write checks that our actions don't cover. Okay, so we regularly say we're going to do things. I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to join the gym. I'm going to go skiing this winter. I'm going to spend more time with my family. I'm going to attend the kids' play. I'm going to make more money. I'm going to get a promotion, and the list goes on and on. Yet if we actually go back through our lives or the lives of our acquaintances and count the number of promises about things that were going to be done that actually happened, and if you look in the internet world, the number of people that actually use the products, the bright shiny objects and products that they buy is very small. In the 90% of unuse, non-use, non-fulfillment, non-execution. Okay, so this is where the yes drug comes in. We satiate the desire. We fulfill the need to pretend we're growing by saying yes. So some real obvious examples. I buy an exercise machine. I promise I'm going to use it to work out. I don't. I join a gym, same reason. I promise I'm going to read a book a week or a book a month. I'm going to attend that class to learn a language. I'm going to finally finish my degree in, who cares, XYZ, accounting, computer science, whatever it is, right? And it doesn't happen, and it doesn't happen, and it doesn't happen. And so we regularly do this to ourselves, but we let it go, and we let it go because of the momentary satisfaction we get by saying yes. So we get the satisfaction of having made the purchase. See, I started. I signed up for that class. I signed up for those lessons. I bought that product. I'm going to start that. I'm going to start that eBay course or whatever it is. And everybody listening both live and online later know, and I can tell by the grins, we often do that, right? We often do that, and we make those promises. Okay, but the act of making them and the act of making that purchase quiets the noise because we've told ourselves we're going to do something, and that's what I call the yes drug. The second piece that we don't do is we don't like to accept the changes. So create the commitment, accept the change. If your two things you write down is creating a commitment and accepting the change, those are the two things we don't really like to do. Because creating a commitment after the yes drug, meaning just saying it, means we actually have to do something. Accepting the change means being okay, being comfortable with the adjustments or movement we have to make in our lives to make the new vision a reality. So let's just be very specific. Earlier in my life, I worked a lot. I was gone a lot. I missed a lot of things with kids, a lot of issues because of that, etc., etc. What I have often wondered since then is this: if the price tag on the new car or the new promotion or the new house or the new boat or the new vacation or whatever it is, instead of written in dollars, was written in events missed. This boat costs you 7 piano recitals, 6 missed school plays, and 30 hours of missed close time with each of your children. Or this new car costs 42 hours on dates with your wife, or 60 hours of work around the house to do honeydew projects if you're a guy, and if you're a gal you have the same thing, only it's other honeydew, right? Okay. I wondered for myself after I got to a stage of regret and a stage where I made a determination to try to make some changes. What if the price tag had been written that way instead of written in dollars? I wonder if it would have an effect on how we look at the things and if we'd be willing to accept the changes. So for me, the changes I would have had to make to have a more deep and meaningful relationship would be forego extra meetings, forego looking good in the eyes of whoever so that I could get a particular promotion, forego extra work to turn in a report that was more than necessary so that why? So that I'd get patted on the back, patted on the head, and get the opportunity to, get a promotion that I wanted or thought that I wanted and thought was worth more than the things on that, the things written on that price tag if they had been written the other way. So I want to stop for a minute here and I want to talk about those two things. The S drug consists of being satiated by the idea that we've made promises to do things to ourselves when we truly are not okay with creating the commitment or not really willing to accept the changes. I would like you to either think of examples in your own life or applications that you think are good and appropriate for moving forward or insights that you might have had during this discussion. Comments? Joy, go ahead.
Okay, I've unmuted. Well, there was an example years ago when I was working as a project manager, and I used to take month-long vacations in August, and there was an incident where I had to, somebody had to do a few things while I was out of the country. And so I asked a couple people, their senior level managers, saying, hey, would you be able to take on this role, this responsibility while I'm out of the country? Oh, yeah, sure, no problem. Oh, yeah, no problem, I'd love to do it. And then when I get back, it's like a business plan. I said, where is it? Oh, yeah, no, I didn't do it. Why? Oh, I was just too busy. So then it was like, okay, so I asked the question. I said, well, why did you say yes? To be agreeable, Okay. I've always remembered that. That was like 10 years ago, and I always remembered that statement because it's like, so people will say yes, even though they have no intention of doing it, but just to be agreeable. Maybe it's I don't know, something in their childhood, whatever, who cares? But it was just something that I thought, wow, okay. So this person didn't really want to do it in the first place, but they got kudos for saying, oh, good for you, you offered to do something for Joy while she was gone. Oh, that's really great, I took on these extra duties, but nothing got done. So I'm always aware of that when I'm saying yes to something, like, even if, you think you should do something. I mean, I hate that word, but, do it or don't do it, right? I mean, if you say you're going to do it, then you just will darn well do it, or then don't agree to it. That's sort of like my standard. Don't tell me just to blow sunshine at my butt that, hey, it's all good, I'm going to get this done, if you're not really going to do it, because you're not doing me any favors, and then it just produces all this other stuff, later on. So that's my 2 cents for the day. That's actually worth a lot.
More than 2 cents.
More than 2 cents.
Okay, so I want each of you now to take a minute, and I want you to reflect out loud. I'm going to get everybody involved. Give me an example of a time when you have said to yourself you were going to do something. Maybe you intended to, maybe you didn't, but it didn't turn out. You didn't do it, and in retrospect, thinking about it, it let you feel okay. It let the noise go down in your head for a minute, or for a day, or for a week, or a month. Later, of course, it comes back because it didn't really go away. It's like, that's why I say it's like a drug. You got to keep doing it in order to keep getting the benefit, right? All right. So give me an example, each of you. I'm going to pick on everybody. I see Manny nodding. Can you be first?
Absolutely. I think I had a conversation with my mentor, Kellan, a little while ago, and there were some videos for the landing page for my upcoming project for physicians that I was working on getting done. And I think part of the message that I was trying to get to the physicians, the message I'm trying to get on video, I didn't have yet, and I think I needed the pressure of the deadline to have the message come to fruition. But I think I said, okay, I'll have it ready by a certain date. And the closer I got to that date, the more worried I got about it. And then I think you helped me out because I was like, okay, I'll have it tomorrow by lunch. And you're like, sure. And then my brain did the default thing where I was like, so 6 o'clock? And you're like, that's a late lunch. So I appreciate that external, structure. But that's one case where getting the permission to be a little bit later helped release some of the pressure. But in hindsight, I realized that if I have an end goal that I'm trying to get to, all I'm doing is delaying my own goal, and you're just kind of helping me realize that externally.
Okay, that's a great example. You said yes, and here's this. I'm going to use this example to talk about for a sec. Guys, what we do, whether you're in the film strip or whether you're watching this later, what you do, I know you do, what I do, what we do is we say yes, and we mean to, but think about what we say. If we actually counted the hours or knew what we had to do in commitments or what we would have to throw off the table, I mean, you and I, we each get to pick. We have the same 24 hours. You get to pick what you do. So when somebody says to me, you don't have time, I laugh. That's a bunch of crap. Of course you do. You just don't want to do it as a priority. I used this example before. I'm going to use it right now. If your kid comes up to you and says, Dad, I want to go play catch, and I say, I don't have time because I got to finish this report, that's fine. If the same kid came up at the very same minute, said, Dad, I stepped on a nail, my foot's bleeding out, can you help me? All of a sudden, I have time. I don't say, I don't have time now. I mean, you get up and you go do that, and you make time. Okay, so we get to choose what we do. But what we do, like in Manny's example, and we've all done this, is we say yes, and we commit to a time. Sure, I'll have it done by whatever. And as long as that time is in the future, not in an hour, but in at least a few hours and maybe a day or two, that yes drug just kicks in and we're okay. We got time. We'll fit it in there somewhere. We don't know how. We haven't counted the hours. We haven't scheduled. We haven't done jack. Whatever. It'll fit, right? And yet, if you take accounting of the promises you make, we all write a bunch of checks that our behavior cannot fill. And we literally turn down the volume in our conscience by saying that. And so the purpose of this results on a Rampage Hangout is to, one, call attention to that, and two, I want you to think about every time you open your mouth to make a commitment, count the cost. Count the cost. There's two things that will happen if you do. Okay? The first is you'll be surprised as heck at how much crap you say that you don't do. Okay? That if you really think about it, you don't have any way to get it done. I mean, you just say it, turn the volume down. The second thing that will happen is really good, and that is after you start to count the cost, you'll start to be really in integrity, and you'll feel really good because every yes will be mindful, and then you'll remember, well, I have committed to this, and it means something different when you've done this successfully a few times, and you get in the habit of actually fulfilling it. I'm delivering this on time, and I deliver it when I say I did, and so forth. So this is a process. This is not an event, because you're going to catch yourself after you become amazed at, oh man, I did that again, I can't do that by then. And I'm not sure what everybody else thinks. What I do is I think somehow I'm going to make the person I'm talking to feel better by committing to a time or a result that I can't deliver. So I somehow think if I tell you I'm going to get it done by lunch when I know I can't possibly finish it today, that somehow you'll be okay, and if I told you no, it won't be done till tomorrow lunch, that you'd somehow get mad at me or feel bad. Now, I don't know that that's true, but I invent that scenario in my head that somehow there'll be a negative consequence. I don't know if anybody else does that, but that's certainly the rhetoric that I use often to make commitments that I can't keep. So that's one example. Thank you, Manny. Rick, you got something for us?
I do, Kellan. I was thinking about what Manny was saying, and I certainly agree that I'm guilty of that and many of the things that you're talking about. But oddly enough, my mind went to a different place with it, and that was the commitment that I made 24 years ago when I said, yes, I do, to my wife, and then to be the father of our daughter. And that's a kind of yes that I've struggled with, countless times over the 2.5 decades. But the level of commitment that I had eventually has made me a little bit more honest about when I say yes, and what I'm willing to say yes to, and how I think about it before I say yes, and I don't just do it indiscriminately because I know that she's depending on me, and that's made me a lot more honest. I must admit it's still very easy to say yes, but then I've learned finally to be more thoughtful about it.
So that's a great example of one kept for 2.5 decades, and that becomes a rarer and rarer feat as the world spirals seemingly out of control in our level of ability to keep commitments. So congratulations on that, and that's a great example. Joy, Manny, Crick, you have done. Kristen, you have something?
Okay. Do you want to mute?
I didn't mute her.
Oh.
You haven't muted yourself.
Oh, that's awesome. I can unmute myself. I think I personally, I'd rather have an honest answer from somebody, even if I don't like the answer. It's still, gee, I can't get this done, or gee, I'd rather have the honest answer so I can sort of deal with, whatever it is at the time than have to deal with the disappointment, perhaps, and then not having whatever done, the next day. So, and sometimes stuff happens. I mean, that's no problem. It's just, I think, knowing in advance, and I just personally appreciate that, and that's how I want to live my life. I mean, I've dropped the ball and things too. Said, oh yeah, no problem, I'll get that done. And I thought, there's no way in heck that I'm going to be able to get this done. Or sometimes you think you can, and then the project becomes so big. Like I'm working on a project right now for a couple of websites, and using a particular software package elegant themes. It seems easy, in all the stuff it says drag and drop. It's that simple. But when I get into the program, it's like, oh no, it's not just drag and drop. Like no. The videos are complicated, and the help is a little bit spotty, and so it's like, wow, this is a bigger project than I had anticipated. I need help with this. So then I was luckily smart enough to actually find some help. We have a guy in Japan who helps us. So, his time is limited, but I got on it right away because I thought, I'm over my head with this. I can learn it. It's not that I'm not going to be able to. It's just going to take me slightly longer than what the project requires. So I got to get on it now. But that's one thing where I thought, I had to just back up and think, you know what? No, I don't. I on myself can't get it done, but the project will get done. So that's not the issue. It's just a matter of how. And some people don't care how. I just want it done. So that's just one example that I have recently, anyway.
Cool. Kristen, you haven't commented. Do you have a comment?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm coming at this from the perspective where everything is new to me, and I'm just like thrown into this online atmosphere, and I want to say, yes, I can handle that. Sure, why not? And I think I've told you guys that on several occasions, just to put myself out there. And then I run into these situations where like, oh no, domestic violence. Oh, I have to move away from my home. Like these things just happen, and they just come upon us, and it can be a little overwhelming. And being new to the atmosphere, you don't want to say, look, I'm a screw up. I have these situations happening in my life, and I need to deal with them. I know that you don't need to deal with them, but I do, and I can't deliver. That's a very scary thing. So I think that is a barrier to being able to say, look, I can't do this at this time, because you're like, I'm afraid that you guys are gonna like not want to work with me anymore, or you or someone else.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, but it's sort of, I guess, depending on what it is, I mean, that's true. I mean, but, if we think we're so self-important also that I'm the only person who can do this, I mean, that's not really true, right? I mean, we change presidents, we change all these people, so, this person, that person, you know, at the end of the day, often, like especially in business, we just, you know, me or you or, you know, anybody else, we just want the project done. And if people have things in their life that, you know, prevent them from doing it, it's okay. Get your life sorted, do whatever, go on a, you know, safari, go on a, you know, meditate, whatever it is, and get your stuff together, and then come back. Maybe things are available, maybe things won't be available. But, you know, these types of skills, you can really get them from anybody, you know, so we're not that self-important that, you know, I'm the only person who can do this. Often that happens in business a lot, you know. You think, oh, they'll be sorry if I go. I can't tell you how many people I've heard that, you know, who've said that. Boy, they're going to miss me when I'm gone. It's like, you know what? No, we're actually not. We're going to miss you. We're going to replace you just like we can replace everybody else. If we can replace the President of the United States of America, you know what? We can replace any one of us. So, oh well.
Yeah, I think it really comes down to respect. Like, how much do you respect the person that you're working with? Because if you greatly respect them, then you're just going to let them know what your situation is.
All right, good discussion. Thank you. So let's talk for a minute about what happens when we take the yes drug. So the first obvious thing that happens is we don't make decisions and we put stuff off. And we don't. We pretend that we're going to move ahead. And we don't. So in all of those circumstances that we've talked about, whether it's finishing videos, whether in positive example that Rick gave, or myself, I'll use myself as a couple of examples, the propensity that I had to overestimate my ability to do things. I always guess too short, and sometimes terribly. And so I ended up embarrassing myself over and over and over again, and then having to scramble for what to do, or scramble to make things up, and it became a pattern. It became a pattern, and so one of the reasons I wanted to talk about the yes drug is because it's something that I've had a struggle with as I figure out how to create integrity between not between my intentions and my behavior. Let's just put it that way. Manny would call this core value alignment. My intentions and my behavior. And so my intentions were always good, but it was tempered through the lens of fear. I was afraid, like Krista mentioned, I would either be looked at poorly, and this is even in the ranks of executives and the ranks of business and high-powered crap that you think is important at the time, but 10 years later, who cares, right? And so you end up in a situation where you have to think about what's the reputation that I'm developing. Can people actually depend on me? And you have to make a choice. And unfortunately, most people that I have watched and become acquainted with don't actually make that choice. They just keep sort of sliding by in more or less degrees of consistency and integrity between their intentions and their behavior. And I guess the foundational piece to stopping any addiction, and I'm going to treat it like this, addiction to saying yes to preserve a relationship short term, to get over some piece of fear short term, to make some perceived or invented negative consequence go away short term, because maybe the moon will explode and destroy the earth and I won't have to deliver. Or maybe World War III will start and I really won't have to. Everybody's attention will be focused. Or maybe Malaysian Airlines will crash into the White House and who will care? Literally half the time that's the kind of catastrophe that would have to happen. And we actually know that intuitively, but we do it anyway. Okay? And so the answer is you have to be aware and you have to make a choice. You make a commitment. So we talked about the two parts of this. Willingness to make a commitment. The first commitment to make is I'm not going to take this anymore. I'm not going to take this drug anymore in my arm. I won't do that, or in my mouth or nose or head or whatever it is. And I'm speaking of it in the very terms of drugs, because that's what it is. We sedate a piece of our mind, of our will, by pretending that we're going to deliver things. Okay? And I maintain that it gets in the way of huge progress. I maintain that it gets in the way of our ability to deliver our prime gift to the world. I maintain that it gets in the way of our ability to create and to produce the kind of creativity and results that we would otherwise get. And that's why it's on Results on a Rampage. If you really want results on a rampage, you have to be in alignment. You have to have the integrity internally between what you truly believe, what you then say and what you do. There has to be a straight line between what you intend, what you say, and what you do if you're going to produce high-level results. And learning that is one of the key pieces to creating awesome results. You don't create awesome results other than showy stuff that doesn't matter unless you have that alignment, a straight line between your values and integrity, what you say, and what you do. And when you do get that kind of alignment and you're willing to create commitment and accept changes that you have to make, then there really isn't any limit to what you can produce and do. And all of you on here, at least in the strip, are in the process of creating businesses. And one of the core pieces of creating a successful business, particularly now in the 21st century, is to have a clear path from what you intend to do in a transparent and authentic manner, speak it, and then in a transparent and authentic manner deliver. That doesn't mean that schedules always get met. It doesn't mean that functionality is always what you want. It doesn't mean that everything happens like you predict. It means that there is clear integrity between the intention, the spoken word, and the action, and that when things are derailed, that's simply part of the clarity and part of the full disclosure so that you remain at peace. So there's two things that happen. The first and most important is you are in peace. And when you're at peace internally, then you're in a place of creativity and a place of power. If you're not in a place of creativity and power, you can't produce. Also, oh, by the way, other people will learn to trust you, and they'll know that you're not full of crap because you're able and willing to communicate how things are and what's really going on and what you really intend and mean all of the time, and you do it without fear and without whatever. And people can choose to hate you, and people can choose to jump off a cliff and or try to throw you off a cliff, whatever. Who cares? If you live in a place of creativity and power, you're okay. And that's a big change. I realize that for some, maybe a little change for others, but it is a significant mindset issue and mindset element for results on a rampage. All right, so I'll stop the speech and open it up to comments again for either observations or insights that you've had during that little rant.
I want to clarify because I'm trying to get your quote down. You said when you're at a place of peace and power, then you're in a place of creativity, or how did that go?
I said, now you're going to make me do that again. You may have to go back and look at it. Yeah, if I said it in a perfect way, then it's perfectly on tape, and I won't try to pretend that I'm saying it the same, because inevitably I will screw it up. So
I really liked what you had to say, so I will go back.
One of the funny things, so I'll tell you a little funny thing about my career. It has been often the case in my career that I will get in a zone and I will speak words, even in the midst of rooms of lawyers and legislators and people writing stuff, and stuff will come out, and somebody somewhere in the room will say, did somebody write that down, or is somebody recording this? Because the way it came out was, it created that resonance with everybody in the room, like, oh yeah, like that. And fortunately here the answer is yes, it's recorded. Anyway, thank you. I can't remember precisely what I said, so I'll go back and look at it later too. Others have comments about the rant. The principle, of course, is that you don't have to care if other people hate you and want to throw you off a cliff. You don't have to live their lives, and you don't have to live in their hearts. You have to live in yours, and you need to be at peace and in integrity with yours, and then you access your own creativity and power when you're at peace. Okay, when you're at peace, you access your creativity and power. When you're not at peace, I don't care what you said, and I don't care who you're making happy, you're junk. So, other comments?
Kellan, when I say yes, I want to mean it, and what I want to avoid doing is saying I'll try, because that's a lie for me anyway. When I say yes, I really do want to mean it, and I appreciate the theme that you have today, and it reminds me how important it is that I mean it when I say yes.
Great. So the other two pieces we had up here, we've talked about, learn what the yes drug is, are you addicted, and what to do now. Are you addicted? I would say that everyone is addicted in some degree or another. Even people that know and understand it and work on it. It's a difficult thing not to do, particularly when there's pressure on in a moment and you're trying to make somebody happy. But what to do now is to be mindful, which is the answer to so many things. Think before you speak, listen to what you're doing, intend, and just check. takes 2 seconds to check to see if your true intention, your true belief, what you're speaking, and what you plan or can deliver are in alignment. That's not a complicated process to create that alignment and to live there. And the minute you're out of it, when you start living in it, the minute you're out, you feel it. I mean, your heart goes, eh, and you know that.
Kellan, I find one thing that's helpful a lot of times to folks is to understand that when what your brain is saying is, I'll try, it means it's time to renegotiate some detail of the agreement, the goal, or the deliverable. Because I'll try implies, like Rick said, a certain lack of confidence about it. So you're violating the rule of under promise, over deliver. So it's better to tell the person, you know what, and you go ahead and bite the bullet then, and you say, you know what, let's cut that in half. I'll get half of what we just got you really happy about to you. And then you get twice as much to them, and you've over-delivered. Whereas, you're burning the relationship every time and burning your self-esteem every time you don't.
That's really good, and one of the I want to recommend to everybody that didn't hear it already, Manny's Hangout earlier today, where he was on somebody's show, I forgot who.
I was Get Busy. Yeah.
Get Busy. I thought it was really cool. I didn't quite listen to all of it, but I listened to most of it, and I thought his explanations and stuff, and they were really good. He did a lot of really interesting self-disclosure that I thought was really cool. And if you want to get to know a bit about Manny, listen to that Hangout earlier today. I'd recommend it. I want to say one thing about this self-esteem hit that he talked about. One of the principles that I teach really hard in coaching when I have private clients, I pound the daylights out of them, is something called the Core 4, which is a process that you set up for yourself, and I'm not going to talk about the details now because we don't have time. It's a process that you set up yourself where you create the opportunity for full integrity every day by intentionally creating a certain promises around 4 core areas of your life. But they're small. They're small, and so you can do them in an hour. And you do them first thing in the morning, and then you set up the day for success because you have created full integrity from the beginning of the day. And so it is extremely powerful, because then what you do is you end up you quit being a liar. You quit being a liar to yourself, one of those people who regularly promises little things to themselves and then doesn't do it. You get rid of that mentality. You get rid of that process entirely, and you create the thing where you always do what you say you're going to do. And you set it up with this Core 4 process. But that self-esteem hit is so important, because when we regularly say we're going to do things, even to ourselves, and don't, you create literally a situation where you believe and are a liar. I lie to myself all the time, every 5 seconds. I don't, or I try really hard not to. But that's a fundamental thing about that self-esteem piece, because then you create, and then you project that on others that they're not in integrity either, and so you either project it, or you live it yourself, or you live it and project it, and you do both. And then everything's all messed up. And so that's a key piece of it. So when you said that about emotional integrity, or the self-esteem hit, I just wanted to say that. Anything else before we close out? We're a bit over time today, but oh well. Okay, seeing nothing else, thanks guys, and we'll talk to you later next week. Please put your comments in, share the Hangout with anybody you think's interested, and bring them on next time. We'll talk to you later.